Welcome. This is Ad Emmen reporting live from our studio 4 meters below sea level in Almere. And today we talk to Bastian Koller, who is managing, well, not one, but even 3 EuroHPC projects. So welcome, Bastian.
Hi, Ed. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk here.
You're welcome. So can you please very shortly introduce yourself and say what's your role in ALET's Rust?
So I'm Bastian Koller, obviously. I'm the managing director of the High Performance Computing Center, HLRS, which is part of the University of Stuttgart. And I'm, let's say, being on one side the managing director, on the other hand, I'm responsible for the project work and also coordinating some activities, especially the political relevant ones.
And I guess like everyone of us, you're also working from home these days. So yeah.
Obviously, yes. But I outsource the kids and the wife, so it's okay. We can talk directly.
Okay, very good. So as I mentioned, there are 3 projects that you are coordinating. Well, and they were approved by the EuroHPC joint undertaking, and they will start shortly. Can you just give a brief overview of those 3 projects?
Yes. So within EuroHPC, there was the frame to work on national competence centers. So there were two of the 3 projects which deal especially with the setup of national competence centers on HPC within the frame of EuroHPC, which is one is EuroCC, which is a research and innovation action with currently 36 beneficiaries, 33 countries. And each of them, let's say, has around between 1 and 2 million of budget to work and to set up the frame of a national competence center in their local area, in their nation. Then we have a second project, which is Castile, which is a coordination and support action. And Castile is the project which wants to establish the European level collaboration between the single national centers. So the idea is to not say, okay, here's your money for the National Competence Center and good luck, but here's the idea really to bring people together to understand that we have different levels of maturity in the different nations, and that these nations can benefit from each other in the one or other aspect, and to bring them, as I said, together within the Castile project. And the third project is called Fortissimo for EuroHPC, or FF for EuroHPC, which is a follow-on the previously and successfully executed Fortissimo project activities, which were led by Edinburgh. Unfortunately, they could not do this now because the Brexit has, let's say, a certain impact on them. And so HLS took over the lead of this, and what we want to do here is to bring the HPC again closer to SMEs, small and medium enterprises, and to make business experiments with them, which result from open calls for projects, so that at the end we can provide success stories and to show the real impact of HPC in the application in the real world industrial environment.
So that's a short overview. If we dive a little bit deeper into EuroCC, so can you tell a little bit about that? So how many partners are there, and what will they exactly do during the coming years?
Yeah. So EuroCC is, as I said, we have 33 nations. In total, it's 36 partners, and we have, let's say, if you look at all the linked third parties coming with these partners, we are around over 100 participants here. So what they do is they all follow the same approach for 2 years to set up the frame for what could be a national competence center, which starts from identifying the competences in each of the country, which continues then to work and understand the needs of industry in their respective field, but also from other potential customers like public administration, like the society in general, and to understand really what are the strengths of the country, what are the weaknesses. Sounds hard, but let's say where are they not so mature yet, and so where they could benefit from setting up this national competence center and to foster activities to strengthen, let's say, a global availability of HPC and obviously related technology services. So it's not only plain HPC, but also takes into account AI or data analytics as being, let's say, part of the overall workflow.
You mentioned 36 countries, but if I look, or 33, but if I look at EuroHPC, there are only 32 member countries. So it means that there are also countries outside EuroHPC who are in the project.
Yes, we have some associated countries. Some of them recently joined to this. So like it's quite an agile project. So when we submitted the proposal, we had set money aside to onboard new members of EuroHPC, which really happened now. So the last two ones joining were Iceland and Montenegro coming into the game. So we are set up here, and let's say we are open, flexible to onboard also further countries if they join. The only thing is that we have to take into account that there will be no budget from the JU side for this 2 years, but we could integrate them into the discussion with some contracts so that they could also prepare for a potential follow-on phase on this.
Yeah, another topic is, of course, that a lot of countries already have national HPC centers, and some countries, like for instance Germany, already have 3. So and others don't. So how do you handle that very big range of different kinds of national centers?
So we gave a clear and strict let's say work plan, or let's say topics to address for this, where we identify these are the common topics for each of them. Even again, taking into account the level of maturity is quite diverse. So as you say, in Germany, we have the 3 centers, or we have, let's say, the Gauss Center of Supercomputing as an umbrella. And let's say Germany has invested a lot of money into HPC over the last years. It's similar for other countries, like, for instance, France, etc. On the other hand, you have, let's say, a lot of the new members states which don't have that experience in the one or other area, but in other, let's say, domains like really the algorithmic work, like say the really research behind that. So, as I said, the idea is really to ensure that they all follow a certain plan, that they work on roadmaps, that they understand what are the things they have already, what are the deltas they have to close, and then really go into that direction. And the level of maturity is very interesting, but also gives us then, in conjunction with the Castile project, the possibility to do new programs, like, for instance, exchanging trainer programs, exchange people, giving courses in other countries, which they don't, let's say, have now available, but want to set up, but boost the developments there to better understand also on their side what they really need.
So perhaps you mentioned Castile or Castile, I don't know how you pronounce it. I mean, we learn. Anyway, so perhaps it's good to now explain a little bit more about the Castile project.
It's Castile, and it has a long history of changing names during the proposal preparation, where we somehow always hit the target of some country being not happy, because if you have so many countries, you have, let's say, the language differences, and as a German, you have an idea of a word which means something very nasty in another language. So Castile was the final decision. So it's let's say, as we said, it's a coordination support action. So we have diverse activities here. The whole thing is settled up about providing a frame for the national competence centers to get into exchange with each other, and setting up working groups on certain domains. So we have, let's say, identified 3 main domains of working groups. One is the training, twinning, mentoring area. One is the industrial interaction area, and the other is also how to create awareness and how to disseminate the results. Because at the end, what you need is, if you have a country investing money into these activities, people also in the society have to understand what's the benefit of it.
The Castile project, is that only serving the competence centers, or has it a wider goal?
It will have a wider role, not in terms of, let's say, so the main purpose obviously is to serve the competence centers. The other thing is that with EuroHPC, there's now a really big strategy implemented, and we have, let's say, connections to diverse areas like the centers of excellence in HPC, like PRAISE. So PRAISE is part of the Castile consortium, for instance. So we tried to interact and interlink here the available expertise and knowledge. So, because at the end, what I don't want to have a 2 years project reinventing again the wheel, which has been reinvented already by things which reinvented the wheel before. So, and I think we have a lot of excellent activities in Europe, which now have to somehow get into contact. So one part of Castile is also to create the awareness of what is there. So taking the competence map from the national competence centers, making like a big competence map over Europe, but also understanding which other activities are there and what is already funded and where they could benefit from each other. The uptake then is obviously the decision of the national competence centers themselves. That's clear. We will not dictate it. It's really a coordination and support action, and rather support really to provide them access to this. But from my experience, I know all the project developments which have been part of projects where I'm involved in, but sometimes I'm surprised because some projects are very good in delivering results and not really to spread a message. And some other activities are more spreading messages and not, let's say, up to the point. So for me, the interesting part is really to get into contact here and to really foster the developments in Europe.
So perhaps it's good now to turn to this third project. So I'll let you pronounce the name so I can remember it and go a little bit into detail, deeper into that.
So the third one is FF for EuroHPC, and the FF stands for Fortissimo because it's a continuation of the Fortissimo activity. So Fortissimo 1 and 2 were in the area of manufacturing, enabling within open calls a business experiment. So the idea was that some centers come together with industrial partners. Main focus is on small and medium enterprises, and help them to boost their developments and, let's say, to improve their business so that they can see what is the benefit of applying HPC and, again, AI, HPDA, whatever is needed to their respective business. And by that, this is somehow like an automatism that having these success stories, also there's we get the attendance from other players in this field, because if they see that a competitor has some advantage, obviously they are interested in getting the same advantage done on their side. Now with the FF for EuroHPC, we continue this tradition. We plan for 2 open calls within the next 2 years. Also, of course, we will have a close link to the EuroCC and Castile activity, because ideally we can here help to support the national competence centers to provide perfect bids, but it's a complete open process. So there will be an open call, there will be evaluations of this call, and the best proposals will be selected. And the idea here really is to focus on the success stories creation. So in terms of budget, you see this very well reflected, because like it's a 2 million budget for the core partners, which are 6 of them, coming from the old Fortissimo consortium mainly. And 8 million are for the open calls themselves. So there's a lot of money into this to create the success stories.
There are, of course, other initiatives to support, let's say, SMEs with HPC technology, and there are also companies working on that in Europe. And you also have, for instance, initiatives like Uber Cloud, which are also doing similar things. So will you collaborate with those?
We are always open for collaborating this. They're now not part like that, but they could come to us. I'm personally, I'm always open for rather discussion than saying, oh, I'm the best one. And obviously, if you always pretend that you're the best one, you try to get all the money. But at the end, I want to have the impact. And the impact means also to see and to learn from the others, and on the other hand, to be open to the others. At a certain point in time, obviously, when you have created a business, something like this, there are protected things. But at the end, I think we should be as open as possible to interact and to let's say, share experiences with that. And that's the reason why we from Fortissimo, original Fortissimo was based on centers which had the experience with working with industry and SMEs already, which is a different kind of working than being a plain academic center. This, by the way, will be also a challenge for the national competence centers, because part of them wants to really interact with industry, but this means that you have to have a quite different approach towards dealing with industrial customers than you have potentially with academic customers from universities or from research activities.
So that's the third project. So if we look at those 3 projects, how do they fit into the overall picture? I mean, we have EuroHPC, and the joint undertaking has announced that there will be something like 8 machines which will be online, probably by the end of the year, but most likely by the beginning of next year, including some very big ones. Yeah. So that's a big part. Then there's a smaller part with research. Then you have the more support-like activities that you do. So how does that all fit together? How do you see that?
So usually I start distinguishing between the national level and the European level. So the national level is what we will realize with the national competence centers. And here you might have national resources which can be used, national research which is there, national industry, because again, also here, which was very important, ideally industrial is addressed on a national level. It's quite hard for some small and medium enterprises from the Swabian area, like in Stuttgart, to go to a center which is somewhere on the other side of Europe, because there's also a level of trust in here. So we need to have the national component here. But then we go to the European level, which is then dealt with by the EuroCC and Castile interaction. Fortissimo for EuroHPC providing them the activities here. Then you have, let's say, the machines which are there, which will be utilized as far as we can get access to them. But first of all, we have to prepare the users also on a national level to be able to use these machines. And we have to learn from the centers of excellence on HPC applications what are the benefits of utilizing these big machines or the pre-access systems, but even the petascale systems for industry. And I think this fits very well together here. The main thing is just for me that there needs to be some years now of continuation to foster all those things and to integrate the bits which are handled. And also, which we did talk about, you have a lot of fat HPC projects which are coming in here. So there will be one which will be, for instance, looking at CFD open form. If you look at CFD open form, this is heavily used by industry, and this is what industry needs there. So if you can then give access to this code via the knowledge base to the national competence centers, and they can interact with their customers there using these kind of codes, etc., then it's a perfect benefit for the whole area.
So I think that nicely covers the whole the whole area of HPC. Just a tiny question. We are now in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis. Did it have any effect? Did that lead to any changes in your projects or project proposals?
Yeah, so on one hand, obviously, we plan now for less face-to-face meetings than before. And I think with 33 countries, that would be really likely that we have some of the risk areas. So we go for virtual things. I would have liked to see the people in person, to be honest. Some of them I know, some of them I didn't know, but it is as it is. What we have seen is a certain potential also for the national competence centers to have a look on these kind of COVID-related research potentials, for instance. Because what we learned from a lot of countries is there was like a urgent request for, we would like to do some statistic analytics, something like this, or can we use HPC for that and that and that. So obviously, as I try never to rest too much, I'm always thinking in my mind how to set up something like a European COVID central, where you could, let's say, bring together developments from projects like prediction of flu spread or something like this, which we have already in some of the centers of excellences, but also, let's say, then taking into account other things. That we can really provide a toolbox for these kind of occurrences and potentially improve the way how we can deal with that by having things ready here. So I think, yes, the projects directly are not that affected with that, obviously. We will have to see for the Fortissimo, for EuroHPC, in how far it can deal, or the SMEs can deal with the economic area here. So I think it's very good for them to get here funding for their activities, because this is where they can potentially boost their innovation potential here. In general, I think HPC will be very important for the next year, because it can help, again, the existing businesses to innovate. And if you look at the COVID impact, it's for the big players, it's for the small players. Everybody has an issue, and I think there will be somehow, or my fear is that there's somehow now an accelerated market adaptation, where you have to find out which are really the ones which provide innovative products to stand or keep standing there. And we don't know. I think there will be a reduction of the overall, let's say, number of companies that you will see, unfortunately. But this is how it is. But we have to see that we strengthen those which are open and which can provide innovations. And I think the HPC, and again, in conjunction with AI and HPDA and whatever will come up then, is very, very helpful for this. But it needs to fit for the purpose of these players. And I think this is a good start, having these national competence centers where we can bring in the knowledge, how to deal with them, how to support them best and how to make the maximum utilization of available resources in Europe.
And that would also be a very nice closing for the interview, I think. So, thank you a lot for this interview.
Thank you very much.
For Premier Magazine, this was Ad Emmen reporting.